Thank you so much, Your Excellencies, for making time at the close of the Africa Leadership Forum to talk with us about your thoughts and your suggestions, recommendations on the way forward. We've had 1.5 days of discussions here in Kigali, Rwanda, focusing on the issue of Africa's sustainable development and the financing of that development. For you, what are the key highlights, or what really was inspirational or educative for you over this past day and a half? And I'll start with you, sir.
Well, I always hear people complaining about the fact that we meet just to talk, and there is no action. But I think we need to talk, we need to exchange experiences, we need to, because we cannot act just without solid information, without exchanging experience. And this is why I'm very, very happy that the 2 days were extremely fruitful, because really I learned a lot, mainly from the economic sector. And I can assure you that there are a lot of ideas that will be put in practice when I go back to Tunisia.
Excellent, that's great news. President Mkapa, what for you has been really a standout?
Well, the standout is the confirmation. There is a lot of room for domestic mobilization for development funds of our countries. The exchanges there have highlighted how we can maximize those funding sources, how we can create an environment which enables growth, economic growth by ourselves, without excluding the possibility of external investment into the development agenda for us. The second one is the extent to which we have been able to analyze the obstacles for external investment to come out more productively, and how we can retain the returns from those investments and convert them to development funds in our countries. I have liked the frankness with which participants have analyzed individual, regional, as well as continental challenges. And I believe that when we have presented the full report to governments, there will be a lot of action lines which they can undertake.
Thank you for that, Mr. President. For you, what has been most instructive and educational over the past 1.5 days?
The first one is to see that Africa is great, and Africa is able and willing to face the challenges ahead, just like our founding fathers did in '63, while they were weak. Today, also, Africa can face the new challenges that we are facing, the challenges of development, but based essentially on our own capacities, self-esteem, and stronger and efficient institutions.
Staying with the ideas of the transformation that we do need to see, and it's exciting to say you're seeing the possibility of Africa rising. We are seeing the possibility of, Africa really taking the mantle for herself and starting to set her own agenda. We've talked a lot about that. We've talked a lot about mindset. From a lot of the technical discussions that we've heard, what did you pick up on that you felt we must do? It is essential in order to transform our position in this global environment. For you, what was the important?
Well, I liked very much what President Park had said many times, that we have to develop ourselves. We must not rely on outside countries. And I also remind you that President Paul Kagame said yesterday that we are begging all the time for what we already have. And we have the resources, but we have to protect them from corruption, because corruption is quite bleeding, the resources that we have. And just by, protecting these resources from being stolen by what I call well-dressed criminals, you will have a lot of resources that you can use for your country. Then look, if you just, the middle class we have in Tunisia just would pay taxes to the government, then we will have also another sum of resources. And then we have to discuss the problem of our debt to the foreign countries. And those are the technical issues that we can work on, to keep our resources alive and to use them for the best interest of the society. We do have the resources, we just lack of the political will. When we have the political will, I am sure that we can mobilize all the resources, and that of course, we would always need the outside world, but not in the scale that now we are begging everywhere, and that should be stopped.
Thank you. In fact, in the words of President Paul Kagame, he said, Africa has the resources. In fact, we've been developing other people's economies.
Exactly.
And we must now develop our own. President Mkapa, I come to you now, and really you highlighted the fact that it's all about politics. It really does come down to the political will. So how do we fix that? What's the way forward on that?
Well, we have made a start by establishing the institutions of political cooperation for development in the form of regional organizations such as the East African Community, and then the continental organization, which is the African Union. What has pleased me about this session is that we've been able to explore or evaluate the degree to which the instruments of cooperation within such regional and national frameworks, how they are operating, what obstacles are in the way, but above all, how to resolve the will to scale this up. By so doing, we will strengthen the base for sustainable development regionally and nationally. But more importantly also, by such cooperation, we'll be building a starting point for more productive and more rewarding cooperation in international trade and investment with the rest of the world. That we have explored very well indeed, and there are openings that must be seized as quickly as possible.
President Guebuza, when you look at this situation, we're talking about cooperation just now. President Mkapa has referred to the importance of that. We've been talking about it since independence. Kwame Nkrumah and other Pan-Africanists, Julius Nyerere, guided us in that direction. We got derailed. Do you believe that we can do it? We can achieve a unified voice and a unified purpose as Africa?
Africa is one of the wonders of the world. To be able to unite the few free states that existed, independent state that existed in 1963, and say, let us fight against colonialism, and go along all this long way and almost reach that objective. Exception is the Sahara that we know. That shows that we are capable of doing things.
Absolutely.
I'm sure we can do things.
Sure.
One of the things, of course, which is necessary at this stage, we must be vigilant, is that we must not teach ourselves to be foreigners. We must use our own curricula that create pride.
African pride.
African pride.
African pride, African knowledge.
Of course.
You agree?
No, well,
Of course, I agree. I agree. I think we have to be confident in ourselves and in our continent, in our future. Otherwise, we will do nothing. We have to be confident. This is keep faith.
Right.
When one talks about African knowledge, knowledge is not something that is specific to each individual or to each continent. What we need to know is using the knowledge that exists, scientific knowledge that exists in the world, make it use an African way for the benefit of Africa.
For the benefit of the continent. President Mkapa, it's not often that we had, in fact, I don't know if we ever had a forum that brought together former African presidents in the way that you have under the Africa Leadership Forum to discuss, to engage, to share their insights, their wisdom with other experts and stakeholders in this kind of setting. Why is this forum so important, and what next?
I'm hoping that because of the discussions that former heads of state, and basing on their experience while they were in government, we can have insights that will galvanize the process of transformation by present leaders. And we do that by sending them our, not resolutions, but our conclusions, so they can work on them if they want to. But especially alerting them to the kind of dangers that can impede the rapid and sustainable development of our countries. For instance, in the forum last year in Johannesburg, we tackled the question of security or insecurity as being a factor of sustainable development in our countries. And this, for instance, now can be seen to be a major factor, with concerns about the militarization of the Horn of Africa and the militarization of the Sahel and the emergence of terrorist groups, which naturally will impede the process of transformation. So this kind of exposure may not be easy to understand or to be exposed to by leaders who are actually in office, but those who are outside can witness, and perhaps their witness can be taken into account.
Thank you. Maybe I'll ask our two heads of state who are with you here also about your thoughts on this forum and the ability to engage at a forum of this kind. Have you enjoyed it? What does it mean for you?
Yes, of course. I come from North Africa, and this is the only way where the only spot or place where I can meet leaders from other African countries. It's very important for us to meet and to the country where we are meeting. I always hear people talking about the Tunisian miracle, but I think that we have here a Rwandan miracle, and this is extremely important for Africa because look, 24 years ago there was civil wars, poverty in this country, civil unrest, and so forth and so forth. Look, we are in one of the nicest city in Africa. It's a peaceful country. National reconciliation is over and so forth. And this must give us, a lot of hope, not only for Rwanda, but also for all our African countries.
Let me just emphasize that. So for those who have not been to Rwanda, it is a beautiful country. Kigali is the cleanest city I've ever visited, either in Africa or anywhere else in the world. I have to say, it is an orderly city, and coming from genocide just 2 decades ago to this kind of development gives us hope and belief that we can transform the rest of Africa. Wonderful. Please.
Yes. Well, first I want to congratulate former President Mkapa for this initiative. Really is unique. We've been going to different conferences. Of course, each one of them has its importance, and it's useful for the good of the humanity and for African people. This one is very specific, extraordinary, and I do believe that it will help us to take the debate beyond governmental circles and go to the youth and to the civil society, etc.
Private sector.
Private sector, yes, etc. And this will really help Africa grow up faster.
I totally agree.
As we head to the final session of this interview, I want us to inspire many Africans who are watching. And the first thing I will ask you, if you were to share words of wisdom with #1 African leadership in all the different spaces, public, private, wherever they might be, and to the African citizenry, what words of wisdom would you share? Maybe I'll start on that.
First is that we must be proud of being African.
Absolutely.
And secondly, we must not stay back and wait for others. We need also to take initiative in our fields of interest, whether it is artistic, political, economic, and whatever, and all working towards unifying more and more our continent, and also taking our people from the situation of poverty into a situation of enjoying their wealth after, of course, hard working.
So let's be proud of being African.
Yes.
We can walk that journey from struggle to prosperity.
That's right.
President Mkapa.
Well, I would underscore what President Guebuza has said. We are Africans. We are not Americans. We are not Europeans. We are not Japanese. There must be characteristics that define us in terms of our history, of our values, etc., etc. And we must transform without abandoning that uniqueness that makes us Africans. I would emphasize this especially for the youth, because as the globe grows to be finer and closer, we tend to think about the superiority of more ancient countries or longer known countries, and we call ourselves new and developing countries. But that does not mean that we are any deficient in values, in unity, in humanity. So don't model ourselves on the Americans, particularly culturally and educationally and so on, or on the Europeans or any other. Let us find an African cultural base. Let us find an African aspirational base. Let us find a process of transformation which strengthens our unity and reinforces our identity. That's what I would urge. Because otherwise, you find our youth able to quote singers from America and Britain. You find them quoting from philosophers in Britain or France. But there have been philosophers in our history here, from Timbuktu up to Zanzibar. So let us also learn about those and use that experience in order to self-develop.
Thank you for that.
President Mkapa said, we are not Japanese, we are not Chinese, we are not Americans, we are Africans. But President Mkapa, please remember that Africa was the cradle of the human species. So Japanese, Chinese, Americans were African before being Japanese and so forth. This is why
They were us.
yes, they were us. So let's be proud of being Africans. Let's be proud to be human beings. Let's keep faith in our continent, in this humanity, and that we probably would achieve all our goals because we want it, we can do it, and we will do it.
Right, so much of humanity came from, we are the cradle of mankind. It all started in Africa. Let's have the pride. That's reiterated by all our leaders here. As we wind up, the struggle of leadership is not understood by many. I want you to speak to the continent about where we could be. And can we all be leaders in our spaces? Can we all be a part of transforming Africa? How can we do it? If you had a vision for Africa, what is that vision? And how can we all be part of the journey of transforming Africa? How can we take leadership of the African agenda of growth and development?
Just listen to yourself. Listen what's going on inside you, and inside you you'll find that there is a huge, power that would push you forward. Just listen to this instinct and let it go.
Please, President. Let me ask President Guebuza next, and we'll finish with President.
Yeah. Well, there is another element which I would like to bring in here, which is about peace. We cannot be proud Africans, and we cannot go beyond underdevelopment and reach development if we don't have peace. I'm talking peace in all dimensions, personal, general, absence of war, absence of conflicts. I'm not talking about conflicts of different ideas or views. That's important for development. I'm talking about conflicts, violent conflicts especially, that exist. So peace should be one of the issues that we have to defend, pursue, and see that Africa has reached that. Still a long way to reach that. And the second element which I would like to present is that when we talk about being African, having our own ways of expressing ourselves, our feelings, and of transforming the world, our own philosophies, that shows that if we can do that, we are going to achieve. The other thing has to do also to the interchange of views. If we do as President Mkapa has been doing now, creating conditions for us all to talk about whatever we have to contribute to this development, transformation, in fact, then the world will spread, and we are going to reach our objectives sooner than later.
Thank you so much. President Mkapa, we have a vision. How do we all get there together? You have the final word.
What I'm most clear about is the primary stage of transformation for our people, which is conquering the scourge of poverty in the sense of hunger, bad health, lack of water, enough food. And this can be done at relatively low financial cost, but a great human spirit of determination. And this requires leadership which is inspired and a population which is responsive because it knows that it is included in the development and transformation process. For me, the fundamental, a measure of the country having started on the path of transformation and development is to what extent we are tackling this problem of poverty, ignorance, and disease. Because once we do that, we will mobilize the energy for further transformation. We will also widen the scope of understanding of our world and our environment, and we'll be able to mobilize the strength to tackle the problems arising from those. I think this can be done. If we take the standards of transformation or development in terms of what American music is, or American education, or European education is, then some of us may be able to qualify and transform, but the majority of our people will still be mired in the quagmire of poverty, ignorance, and disease.
Thank you so much, Your Excellencies, for making the time to share your views. There's much to do, but we can do it. And what we have understood is that we need a common purpose, a common voice. We need unity, we need peace, we need stability. We have what it takes. And I'll use the words of one of our speakers today. They said, if you're not seated at the table, Africa, you are on the menu. So do what you need to do to transform. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.